know that's Mr. John's, one of his favorite songs. So. All right. So it's been a busy, busy, busy week for me, with lots of phone calls from people expressing stress, and we're doing some counseling with a lot of people this weekend. So something's in the air, I think. But so I want to talk a little bit today about reframing. And what I continually notice is that, and what I continually observe is that people have this ongoing level of stress, of anxiety, of worry in their life, and it just doesn't seem to go away. It's the traffic, it's the finances, it's relationships, it's their health, it's getting to sleep or not getting to sleep, it's waking up, it's just sort of the whole thing going on. And with reframing, my thought about this is something that actually comes from A Course in Miracles, where it says in the Course in Miracles that I could choose to see things differently. I could choose to see things differently. And that's actually an incredibly powerful thing. Because with something that's happening in life, you know, and I know when something's happening in our life, we see it the way we see it, you know, don't we? It's clearly the way it is. It could not possibly be any other way, because after all, we see it, we're experiencing it, and this is how it is. So it would be ridiculous to think that we could see it another way. And yet, if that were possible, just hang in here for a minute with me. Like, how could I look at this in a different way? How could I see this just a little bit differently? Because, you know, the frame holds the picture of the events. And if I frame it just a little bit differently, well, anything can happen. You know, we have so many things that we're fearful about in our lives, and it's a great thing to interrupt that fearful thought, you know? And there are things that we have, areas that we have tremendous doubt in, and it's great to interrupt that doubt. We have places in our life where we just sort of spiral down in negativity. And if we could catch ourselves and interrupt that, that would be fabulous. And so here's one thing that I think that we could do to interrupt. And it's really a very simple thing, and it starts with our breath. It's like, you know, when babies when they're breathing in their crib, if you watch a baby in his crib and it's breathing, a baby breathes with its belly. And they do that for a while in their life, probably right up until they get to their first mommy and me swimming lesson in a public swimming pool. And they learn and they see other babies who have learned to suck in their stomach. And at that point, we all start to hold it in. And we never really let our stomach out again until we die. But imagine with me, this is a little exercise we did at a retreat that I went to a long time ago. So just imagine with me now, if we breathed in and we actually allowed our stomach to expand, you know? And then we exhaled. And when we do that, we have a little sigh, kind of an ah. And so everybody just with me right now, just close your eyes. And don't peek at anyone else. Just keep your eyes closed. And so just inhale with me now and let your stomach out. Just let it go out. Really. And then when you exhale, just give a little sigh, a little ah. Now, just imagine if we could interrupt something negative, because what I suspect is so that we tend to build a whole negative movie, an epic drama in our minds sometimes. And sometimes after we build this big movie about something that we absolutely dread and how awful it's going to be and how terrible it's going to be, well, sometimes when we really dreaded something, and we built it up, it just doesn't happen that way. It's not as nearly as bad as we thought it was going to be. You know, the thing is that part of our mind loves to tell us that what's going on in our life right now is not right. That this is just not right. It's just not right. It should be different. It should be other than it is. It should be something else. And one of the things that we teach in Science of Mind is that awareness is curative. So if I could bring an awareness to something where I begin to have some insight, some awareness, then I can start to have some healing. Deep breath again. Little sigh. So what is a new choice that I could make? Another way to look at this is, how do I bring consciousness to this? How do I bring consciousness to this thing that I'm experiencing right now? How do I start to evolve and involve the spiritual truth here? What's the spiritual truth that I could remember? And how do I start to focus on spiritual truth rather than the insane thinking that I'm so often caught up in? So there was this woman who wanted to let go of her fears and live in the moment. And she had tried going to many, many seminars and workshops, and she'd read a gazillion books on the subject, and she'd been to 97,000 therapists, but she still spent most of her time whining and kvetching and complaining, resisting what was happening, resisting everything negative in her life, and wishing that it would all be different. And so she heard about this wise old woman who had helped many, many people. And so she goes to the wise woman and she tells her story. And the old woman listens very patiently and lets her tell the whole thing about how she resists everything in her life, and she whines and she complains and she wishes everything were different. And the woman finally says, "Do you have anything at all that can help me?" And the wise old woman says, "Yes. When you get up in the morning, first thing, say to yourself, I'm grateful for everything that happens, and I have no complaints at all. I am grateful for everything that happens, and I have no complaints at all. And then, every time you notice that you're starting to complain or resist or whine or you wish life were different, anytime that happens throughout the day, say to yourself, I'm grateful for everything that happens, and I have no complaints at all." And so the client woman was very serious about this because she really wanted some help. And so for the entire year, she got up every morning and saying, I'm grateful for everything that happens, and I have no complaints at all. And when she thought during the day anything that was going on, whining, and she would do it again. And at the end of the year, she felt like, geez, I just didn't do a very good job with this. Because she still resisted, and she still complained, and she still whined. And she was just still wanting her life to be different than it was. And she was still doing that thing. Her big thing was, she was always criticizing herself. She was always on her own case about something. And so she goes back to the old wise woman and she says, it didn't work. It just didn't work. Do you have anything else? I'm still really critical, and I'm still really self-centered, and I'm totally involved with my own drama and what's going on in my life. It just didn't work. And the old wise woman looks into her eyes in that special way that sometimes people look at us. And she doesn't just look into her eyes. She looks into her. And she saw deep within this woman. And she just looked at her and said, and I'm grateful for this. And I have no complaints at all. And the woman got it. She just got it. In that moment, she became enlightened. And it was that she was no longer the same. She had learned to sidestep that constant, fearful, belittling, judgmental, critical mind about herself and about everybody else. And her true nature, this loving, creative, joyful part of her could come forward. She was less fearful. Do you remember that movie that came out many years ago? It had Meryl Streep in it, and it was called Defending Your Life. I don't know if anyone remembers it or not, but the first part of it is that people die and they go to Judgment City. And this is just a temporary stop for them. Now, my favorite part of the story, go figure, but in Judgment City, while you are there, you can eat anything you want. Absolutely anything you want. And it's my favorite part of the whole movie. Like, God, that's great. That's fabulous. What a place. I want to go there. But anyway, what happens in Judgment City, though, is that after you die, you get to review. And you get to see if you have learned to overcome fear, the fear in this life that you have just lived. And if not, you get to reincarnate and you get to work on it again. Oh, whoopee. But you know, there is that part of our mind that I think is always trying to just keep us attached and trapped in bondage to the fear. Like, you better be afraid of this, and you better watch out for that. You better be scared of this, and what if this happens, and what if that happens? And well, they might hurt you. They might leave you. They might love you, and they might not love you. They might fire you. They might steal from you. They might do this. They might do that. What if? What if? Well, here's the thing. What if makes everything a catastrophe? Have you noticed that? It's that if we just start with a little what if, the progression of what if is catastrophe. And it wears us out. What if, what if, what if? And they tend to be negative. We don't sit and do a lot of what if in a wonderful, life-affirming way, do we? And I wonder to myself, what if we did that? What if we did that? What if we tried that? What if we're not alone? What if I really am part of God? What if the infinite intelligence of the universe is right where I am? What if I'm valuable beyond measure? What if I am love made visible? What if I am a loving person? And in being loving, I find greater peace of mind in my life. See, here's the thing. How could we be the people we are today? How could we be the people we are today if we had not, in fact, been through everything that we have been through thus far? The good, the bad, the in-between, whatever you want to call it. We would not be the same people we are today. And I hold really, if the truth be told, that we would not trade it in. Really, none of us would trade it in because of how we have become who we are. And see, what has happened over time is there's actually been some reframing. It's not like we would be saying, well, it would not be my preference to go through that difficulty again. That would not be my preference. That wouldn't be high on my list of the things that I'd like to go through. All that stuff that was so difficult, so awful. But here's the thing. We have come out on the other side. And we've actually learned something. We've grown. We've evolved to some extent. And I'm not saying that it was all like this perfect scenario that we would choose for ourselves. But it really did serve us. Now, I think that we also think that we have a long, long way to go to be healed and to be happy, to be as loving as we could be. But I think it might be closer than we think. You know, I heard this theory that says actually we only need to do just over 50% of the work. 51% of the work. And it's like a seesaw. Remember when you were a kid and you were on a seesaw? and another kid would be on the other end, and you'd try and see if you could balance up in the air just perfectly, even for just a split second. And if you did, well, that meant that 50% of the weight was on one side and 50% of the weight was on the other side of the seesaw. And the theory is that healing might actually be like that. That if we do just over 50% of the work, it's been sort of in this balance. And then with just over 50%, it tips. But it tips in our favor. Because after 50%, grace kicks in. Ernest Holmes, our founder, says that grace is the divine givingness of spirit. That spirit is trying to give to us all the time, right? So grace kicks in. And that facilitates the rest of it. And I also think that something that sounds really good is like, it's just that we blossom, we bloom because of grace. See, it may seem that like a little progress. It's not much progress for all the work that we've been doing. But I think to myself, okay, what if the universe is waiting for us with a matching grant? For giving us a matching grant for all the work that we do. Like the universe says, okay, I see that you're serious, Kandace. I see that you're serious about making progress here. I see that you're serious about healing this area. You're serious about loving. You're serious about making some progress here. So when you get to a certain point, we're going to do matching funds for you. That's what we're going to do. And the biggest thing that we need to reframe, I think, and really need to hold in a different light, are those things that that have been difficult for us to forgive. And I think that so often people think that forgiveness is a one-shot deal. Oh, I forgave that. But then you'll notice that it comes back. And you notice it comes back again. And it keeps coming back. And so I think forgiveness is a spiritual practice. It's maintenance. It's ongoing. It's never a one-shot deal. And that really it's a mindset of non-judgmental awareness. That in forgiving, we don't judge. Imagine that. Wow. And I have to imagine it, frankly, because I am so not there yet. But I'm trying to imagine it. To be forgiving and non-judgmental. And see, the thing is, when we don't judge, we don't miss out on opportunities because the universe can give us tremendous opportunities when our heart is wide open. But as soon as we go to that judgmental place, our heart closes and opportunities seem to just whoosh pass us by. So it seems to me like forgiveness is also learning from our mistakes. That yes, I made a mistake. But because I'm forgiving, I can learn from that. There can be some growth, some increment of growth in my consciousness. And it's also letting go of the guilt if we hurt ourselves or if we've hurt somebody else. Forgiveness. I think that word, just that word, has such a charge on it. It has so many implications to it that I think it might be interesting if we just called it something else. What if we called it freedomness? So instead of forgiveness, I'm practicing freedomness because I become more free in the process of letting go of this and letting go of that other thing over there. And my willingness to just let that be in the past and water under the bridge. There's freedom in that. And here's a special thing about forgiveness. Difficult people force us to heal and find our freedomness. They really do. Difficult people come into our lives and force us to be bigger than we ever thought we could be. And we find freedom we find that freedomness that's within us. So we could reframe here. We could reframe quite nicely here that people who hurt us the most are some of the most powerful teachers in our life. Like we say, wow, that was a horrible relationship. I can't believe that relationship. But wow, this is going to be a really great teacher for me down the road a little bit. Or, oh, that job. That was the worst boss I've ever had in my life. That was a horrible work experience. And it's going to be a really powerful teacher a little bit down the road. Just a little bit down the road, not right now. Because I think we usually need a little time for our head to spin back around. And sometimes just get out of those situations, get a little space in that situation. I don't know why. I really don't know why it is this way, but stressful, negative situations do get our attention. And in that, we learn what not to do, what not to be. We tell ourselves, I'm never going to be like that. I'm never going to do that to someone else. I'm never going to say that. That's not how I want to be in the world. That's not how I want to show up. And that's very, very powerful. So letting go. Letting go is really a key to having greater peace of mind in our life. To just drop it. I'm not going to give this any more of my life energy. I'm just going to drop it. I remember hearing a saying of the Buddha years ago where he said, bless your enemy, for he allows you to grow. And for the longest time after I heard that, I said, no, he doesn't. He just pisses me off. He doesn't allow me to grow. My enemy does not allow me to grow. He just makes me really, really mad. And over time, though, having sat with that for a number of years, now I realize that yes, that actually is true. And I think that's true because the person that we would call our enemy, the boss, the ex, the neighbor, whatever that is for you, really affords us an opportunity to learn something really, really important about how we show up in our life. Can I reframe? Can I reframe to get a blessing, the gift, to get the good out of some kind of a wound? Like, what did I learn from this? How did I grow? How did it make me a better person? How do I get to be more conscious, having been through this? We look really deep and really hard and really well at the wounds in our life. We recognize our woundedness. Like, I have really been through something. But what we don't do so well, we don't look at putting love. We don't look at putting the love into those wounds. So therefore, we don't heal to the capacity that we actually could. We're just kind of like the walking wounded a lot of times. And we just say, well, I've been hurt in life, Well, no kidding, Blanche. Welcome. Welcome to Earth. Because everybody has. Everybody has. It's like part of the enrollment, part of the fee when you get here to Earth School. It's part of the curriculum. So how long are you going to keep carrying that baggage? See, as spiritual beings, though, I think we're here to give and receive love. And often, it's not going to come back from where you have given it. And we just need to get that. We really need to get that. This would save us an enormous headache if when we just checked into this hotel, if they gave us a little form that said, oh, by the way, while you're here at Hotel Earth, you're going to give and receive lots of love. But please don't expect it back from where you give it. Really, don't expect it. Now sign this form saying that you understand that. You're not always going to get it back from where you give it. That would save us an enormous amount of mental stress, I think. And you'd go, okay, I get it, I understand now. And then they would go, ding, bellboy, room 275 can check in. And see, in the process of giving and receiving love, it's a very, very healing thing. And we know this because love is what we need. In every single increment of our life, love is what we need. At every stage, it's what we need. Now, who here was loved unconditionally all the time as a child? I don't see you just jumping up and saying me, 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 me. Probably no one on the planet has ever done that. And so I think that one of the things that really needs to be reframed is this idea that runs so deep in us, and it's that who I am is not lovable. It's that people seem to suffer from this quite a lot. They suffer from this thought, this belief that nobody loves them. And it's because not everybody loved them unconditionally when they were little. So they think that it's probably true that people don't love them and they're unlovable. They're not enough and they're not worthwhile. Just because they weren't loved unconditionally as a child. And no one was. And so now, as practicing metaphysicians, as practicing spiritual students, we have this capacity to have greater awareness. And with greater awareness, we make a different choice. The way we use our mind now is that we're using our mind in a way that we can have a healing. And yes, absolutely, we have all been through a mini-series of experiences in our life. And although we wouldn't necessarily pick them, they got us here. They got us to where we are and who we are. And it may just be that reframing is, I wouldn't have learned what I needed to learn any other way. And again, I don't understand why it is that way, but sometimes things have to be just really difficult. They have to be difficult to get our attention, don't they? And there's a lesson in the Course in Miracles that I love, and it says, I could learn through joy, or I could learn through pain. And the thing is, I think so often that people, when they're learning through joy, they're just not getting it. You know, the opportunity is really there, but it's like, oh, I could learn something really valuable here through joy, but then we think to ourselves, well, this can't be that important, this can't be that good because it's joyful. But if it were painful, that would really get my attention. And so the universe, being a yes universe, just says, okay, here, bonk. And we go, well, why did that have to happen to me? And the universe says, well, dear, you weren't willing to get it through joy. And isn't it about time? Isn't it about time that we could actually reframe and say, now I'm at a place in my life where I'm willing to learn the things I need to learn in a joyful, loving way. That I've learned everything I need to learn from pain. Could you imagine that? Can you just imagine that I've had enough of those painful lessons, all the painful growth opportunities? I'm done with those now. All my other lessons, all the new ones, I am choosing to learn through love and joy. And isn't that the life that we came here to live? And so it is.
So it is.
All right. So let's turn our attention inward right now for just a moment. Remembering that where we are, God is. That each of us is a unique and valuable place where the light and the love of God shines and expresses like no place else on earth. And so knowing our connection with God, with Spirit, with divine intelligence, and remembering also that we are connected with each other, I speak the word for us today that we are willing to do this reframing. that we are willing to hold the experiences in our life in a different light, knowing that they all contributed to us being here, who we are, where we are, on our path right now. That we would in fact not be the person we are today if we hadn't been through every single experience that we've been through in our life thus far. And so I'm just going to say it's all part of an agenda that we needed to have to evolve and to grow and to be the loving expression of spirit that we are today. And so we include in our prayer today our parents and children, family members, everybody who's in our awareness, whether they are on this plane of action or they have moved to another expression of life. We let our prayer be an extension of God's light and love into their life, knowing that for them as well, they're exactly where they need to be at this point of their spiritual journey. So we let our prayer be the energy and light of God's love. And we share that in the world around us so that any difficult situation where people struggle or suffer, where there appears to be not enough, where people believe they're separate from God, from spirit, where there appears to be no peace, we let our prayer be the very activity of God's light and love in the world, blessing, healing, renewing, strengthening. We bless our church. We bless all churches everywhere. We bless synagogues and temples and mosques, ashrams, all paths to God. And again, recognizing that being together, we are uplifted and healed, that we are forgiving, that we are blessed. I accept for each and every one of us that we have learned what needs to be learned through the difficult lessons through pain. And that we are so willing to have great awareness and great consciousness, and we learn everything else that needs to be learned in this life through joy and through love. And so with an open, full, gracious heart, I say, thank you, God. I release this word to the law. Together we all say, and so it is.
The song I've chosen today, first off, it's from my favorite Broadway show ever, in which I'm so excited this holiday season is to become a movie, West Side Story. So I know that you all are going to be, you'll know the show. But